Hello there, man mechanic here. Right, first before we start, we're having a cup of tea. It's an English thing. We always have a cup of tea before we start. Now today, we are going to do the oil pump. Just measure the oil pump, make sure the clearances are okay, and our in tolerances. So what we do first of all is 3 measurements. You do the top measurement, which is that one there, make sure it's all nice and clean. You do the top measurement, and it shouldn't be more than 0.13 millimeters or 0.05 of a thou. So if you can get that underneath there, then the tolerances are too much. All right, so you just do it in different ways. See, as you can see there, that can't get underneath that what's that? See that? So that tolerance is pretty good. See, it's starting to, but it can't get underneath. That's that tolerance. The next one you do is the vanes, which is these ones here. So what you do is you get the vanes and you're looking for that measurement just there, and that shouldn't be any more than 0.008 or 0.20 millimeters. Okay, if you can get this feeler gauge down into that, then it's a new pump or new insides. So if you chew that, see, that's not going down. It will do on the side, but it won't go in the minimum bit there. Can you see that? Just there. So that clearance is pretty good. The next one, or the last one we do, is the clearance between the pump body and the pump vane. See the pump body there? Is that clearance there? That shouldn't be no more than 0.0110 or 0.250 millimeters. So if you can get this down the side of that, it's a new vane. Okay, so you put your wasom in that and you try and force that down. If you can, as you can see, it's in that tolerance. That's the maximum tolerance it should be. If you get that down there, that's worn too much. Okay, so that's fine. Look at that, absolutely tickety boo. So that's the oil pump, and we all know how an oil pump works. There's two what do you call it? Two openings inside. The one's from the oil. As you can see, there's no oil filter in this one. So what that does, that fits on top of that, sucks up. Don't forget the engine. This is the engine upside down there. The oil gets sucked up through there, goes into that first hole, comes up through the vanes, because the vanes are spinning round like that. It's exactly the same principle as a Wankel engine. Okay, and I know we're all going to sniggle at the word Wankel engine, right? So it's exactly the same as principle. So what it does, it forces oil round there. There's another cutout inside which forces it into this gallery here, which is the main oil gallery, which then comes up and feeds all the bearings. It's as simple as that. So that is the tolerances for the oil pump. So that oil pump is fine. Okay, and what we do then is we actually prime the oil pump. So we put a bit of oil in it, so when it first starts up, it's not dry like we did with the bearings. As you can see, there's loads of mess all over it. So we just pop a little bit of oil in there like that. See, it's filling up that one there, right? And that's that. We've got 3 bolts. 3 bolts. Make sure that is lovely and clean, which it is. That goes on there. 3 bolts go through, and all you do with these is you tighten them up to the specifications, which is tighten them up. Right, next job, slurp of tea. Can't go wrong with a nice brew. The next thing we're going to put in is a thing called a pressure release valve. Now the pressure relief valve is a little valve, like it explains really. It's a very simple idea. What happens is you've got an overflow, what they call a dumping hole just there. What happens is this measures the pressure of the oil coming from the oil pump into the main gallery. So it comes past the oil pressure release valve, which should be just sitting on its seat. Okay, it won't then, it's like a door, it's shut. It's not gonna dump any oil. So it bypasses the release valve, goes into the main oil ways, and does all the bearings and up to the top of the engine, does all the rocker shafts and stuff like that. So what you do, you must, if you're ever gonna do an engine, always replace this spring, all right? Very, very important, because what happens then, if you've got, say for example, a blockage in the bearings or anything like that, or before it, what will happen is the pressure will build up and build up, because the pump's still pumping. There's no, it can't go back on itself, so it will keep pumping. What happens is the pressure builds up, the pressure builds up, the pressure builds up, and what will happen, because you've only got cast iron wash stones, it will blow this oil rail out. Okay, it will split the oil rail. So what you do is you put an oil pressure relief valve that fits inside there like that, and then when it gets over to a certain pressure, it will push against the spring, and if you look inside there, you've got a hole which will dump all the excess oil out of there until the pressure releases itself again, and you're back to normal again. All right, that is the pressure release valve. It's easy. It's a fail-safe system. It stops your engine getting blown up. Hello guys, right, what we're going to do this, oh here we go. What we're going to do this time is we're going to fit the crankcase cover for the flywheel. Now, on the later engines, in here, they have an oil seal. But on these, they have a spiraled groove. And on here, there's also a spiral groove, okay? Now, what happens is, when the engine's doing its natural rotation, I can't remember which way it goes, if it's anti-clockwise or clockwise, but if it's running anti-clockwise, that spiral will run clockwise. So what it's doing, it's running the opposite way to the engine. So if you get, not an oil leak, but if you get any oil that passes through here, and instead of coming out onto the flywheel, which then we get onto the clutch and it not giving you power, it then hits this spiral and will naturally, because the spiral's going the opposite way, and then if you watched it, if you start this engine up, you watch the spiral going that way, it will naturally force the oil back into the engine again. It's a very simple idea, but it works. But the later ones, you've got to make sure this is dead clean, because the actual distances between that and that is very, very close. Okay, so as soon as the engine's running, you've got the big flywheel here, you'll get oil leaks through, and it will hit that, and then it will work its way back into the engine again. But on the later engines, they obviously upgraded it, and they put a neoprene oil seal in. So all we do with this, it's very, very simple to do. You get the actual cover, you put it over, as you can see what I mean by that being a really tight fitting. It's just nearly touching it, but it's not actually touching a flywheel, but it's actually very, very, a very close fit. And all you do then is you just tighten these bolts up, and I always put a little bit of sealant on it as well, just to be on the safe side, because you don't want oil coming out here and into here. And you've got another, this plate here will fit on top of that. All right. Right, put the cover on. We've made sure that that the distances are good. What we've got to try and do now is just got to make sure that that is not rubbing on that crankshaft, that cover. There you go. It's nice and fine. Okay, guys. So there you go. You've got the oil pumping, oil pressure release valve, and the rear cover for the crankshaft. Thanks for watching. See you later on.